Remember when the rules of the internet were super simple, like don't feed the trolls and, oh yeah, don't type in all caps? It feels like a lifetime ago, right? But as more and more of our lives moved online, that simple advice had to grow up. It's morphed into this huge, complex, unwritten social contract for how we're all supposed to act in our digital lives. So let's trace that evolution, from those basic rules of etiquette to the massive responsibilities of being a citizen in this digital world we all share.
So here's our game plan. We'll start by digging into why we even needed rules in the first place. Then, we'll look at the original commandments of the web. From there, we'll see how those simple rules blossomed into this bigger idea of digital citizenship. We'll also tackle the messy, complicated reality of today's online world. And finally, we'll take a peek at what the future might hold for all of us online.
Okay, so picture the early internet. It was pretty much the Wild West, and it presented us with this brand new problem. How in the world do you communicate with someone when you can't see their face, you can't hear their tone of voice, you can't read their body language? It was dangerously easy to forget who or what you were actually talking to.
And this quote from Virginia Shea, it absolutely nails it. She said, something about cyberspace makes it easy to forget that you're interacting with other real people. We're not just looking at ASCII characters on a screen, we're talking to live human characters. That one simple realization, it was basically the seed for every single rule that came after.
And so this idea of Netiquette was born. It's a mashup of network and etiquette, obviously. But here's the thing. This wasn't just about being polite for the sake of being polite. No, it was a conscious effort to fight back against the dehumanization that can happen when all you're seeing are, as Shea called them, lonely written words. It was all about keeping our interactions fundamentally human.
Virginia Shea didn't just diagnose the problem, she actually came up with a solution. She created what a lot of people think of as the first real social code for the internet, the core rules of Netiquette. These were meant to be the foundational principles for a more civilized online world.
At the absolute heart of her entire philosophy was what she called the prime directive: remember the human. It sounds so simple, right? But it's the ultimate safeguard. Before you click send, you just apply the golden rule and you run this one simple test. Would you actually say this to the person's face? This single idea was designed to be the firewall against empathy just completely eroding online.
And what's crucial to understand is that these rules weren't just random. They were like the pillars designed to build a real, functioning society. You can see the principles on the left and what they were trying to achieve on the right. It covers everything from basic empathy to adapting your communication style. You wouldn't talk in a professional LinkedIn message the same way you would in a gaming forum. It even covered respecting people's time by not wasting their bandwidth. It was a blueprint for a better internet.
And for a while, these rules were pretty much enough. But then, the internet stopped being a place we just visited. It wove itself into every part of our lives. Our jobs, our friendships, our politics. Our online and offline selves completely merged, and suddenly, simple Netiquette just wasn't going to cut it anymore. We needed something more. This is where the bigger concept of digital citizenship comes in, and it really starts with 3 key building blocks. First, you've got digital literacy, not just knowing how to use the tech, but how to think critically about it. Second, online safety, understanding the risks, from phishing scams to cybercrime and protecting yourself. And third, really grasping your digital footprint. This idea that what you do online can follow you forever.
And that foundation has exploded into a much richer framework. Today, according to groups like the International Society for Technology and Education, being a good digital citizen isn't a passive thing at all. It means being an active learner, a leader, a collaborator, and even a designer of positive online spaces. It's this really holistic view of our role in this digital world.
And let's be honest, trying to be a good digital citizen today is way more complicated than it's ever been. We're all navigating this landscape with these incredible layers of complexity that the early pioneers of Netiquette just couldn't have possibly imagined. We're talking generational divides, cultural misunderstandings, the whole shebang.
Just take the generational divide at work. A baby boomer might see a formal, perfectly structured email as a sign of respect, but a Gen Z colleague might look at that same email and think it's slow, inefficient, maybe even a little technophobic. They'd much rather have a quick, direct message. The key thing here isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about recognizing that we're basically speaking different digital languages, and understanding that is the first step to actually working together. And it's not just about who you're talking to, it's about where you're talking. That old rule to know where you are in cyberspace is now on overdrive. Look at this table. The etiquette for email is all about being efficient and keeping records. But on something like Slack or Teams, the main goal is to reduce that constant notification buzz by using threads properly. And on a video call, Just muting your mic when you're not talking is a fundamental act of digital courtesy. Every single app has its own little social contract.
Now add a global layer to all this, and it gets even trickier. In what are called low-context cultures, like the US, communication is expected to be super direct and explicit. What you say is what you mean. But in high-context cultures, like Japan, preserving group harmony is everything, and the real message is often found in the relationship itself, not just the words. If you don't get that difference, a simple business deal can turn into a minefield of accidental insults.
So, what does this all mean for our future? Well, the stakes for getting digital citizenship right are incredibly high. The consequences of getting it wrong aren't just hurt feelings anymore. They have real, tangible impacts. And there's a new frontier that's already here, forcing us to completely redefine our rules all over again.
We often focus on the victims of cyberbullying, and for very good reason. The harm is immense. But a recent study uncovered this hidden, really tragic side to the story. 16% of frequent cyberbullies are themselves suffering from severe depression. This shows that bad digital citizenship isn't just an action. It's often a symptom of deep, real-world pain, creating this devastating cycle of harm for absolutely everyone involved.
And just as we're trying to grapple with all of that, a massive new challenge shows up: artificial intelligence. We are now communicating, every day, with entities that can write, talk, and create with a realism that is just stunning. This is not science fiction anymore, it's our new reality, and it demands another huge evolution of our social code.
The ethical guidelines for this are literally being written as we speak. And at the very top of the list is mandatory disclosure. An AI has to be transparent about what it is. It can't pretend to be human. We also have to counter what's called deceptive empathy, programming phrases that create a false sense of emotional connection. And we have to be so vigilant about preventing these AIs from just amplifying our own worst human biases.
Which brings us to this one final, kind of mind-bending thought. For decades, the foundational rule of the internet has been remember the human. But what happens when an AI can mimic a human so perfectly, when it can show empathy so convincingly that we can't tell the difference anymore? How does our most important rule possibly survive in a world where that line between human and simulation just starts to blur?